It had only been a few weeks since the move, and although the boxes were mostly unpacked and routines had begun to take shape, the unease still lingered. For Mia, this wasn't just another move, it was a shift in her entire world. She'd spent most of her life in a cramped apartment with her mom, just the two of them. Now, with her mother's recent remarriage, she was sharing a home with a stepbrother she barely knew. She sat on the edge of her bed, her fingers lightly grazing the comforter her mother had chosen, staring around the unfamiliar room. The house was beautiful, open, bright, and far more spacious than what she was used to. But to Mia, it felt sterile, like a stage set rather than a home. Downstairs, Luke was probably in the living room. They hadn't talked much, just the usual small talk and nods in passing. He seemed polite, even thoughtful at times, but something about him unsettled her. Not in a dangerous way, just unfamiliar. Maybe it was how he sometimes watched her as if trying to see beyond the role of stepsister she'd been assigned. Or maybe it was just that he hadn't been part of the life she'd known. And now, suddenly, he was. Her mom's voice echoed in her mind. Give him a chance. Luke's a good kid. He's just adjusting. But Mia couldn't help thinking, what about me? I've been here longer. I'm the one who's had everything flipped upside down. It felt like all the energy was being spent on making Luke feel welcome, while she was quietly expected to adapt. That evening, her mother called from downstairs, voice cheerful. Mia, come down. We're having a family dinner. Luke helped me pick the recipes. She paused, resisting the urge to stay in her room, but guilt got the better of her. She headed down, finding her mom bustling at the stove and Luke setting the table. When he looked up, his smile was casual. Hey, glad you could join us. She smiled, thin and polite. Yeah, I'm starving. Dinner was light-hearted, filled with small talk about the neighborhood and the weather. Her mom did most of the talking, skillfully smoothing over the awkward silences. Mia tried to engage, but there was always a tension, especially when her eyes met Luke's. He didn't seem fazed, though. He was calm, reserved, but not closed off. It was like he was giving her space without retreating. Later, Mia sat in the living room, thoughts spiraling. She had spent so long guarding herself against the changes this new life brought, it was hard to tell if her discomfort came from Luke being her stepbrother, or from something deeper. Something about the way he looked at her made her feel seen. Not in a bad way, but in a way that made her feel vulnerable. Her mom sat beside her, breaking the silence. How are you holding up, sweetheart? Mia shrugged. It's a lot, still adjusting. Her mother gave her a soft, knowing smile. I get it, but Luke is trying too. Give it time. You're strong. You'll figure it out. And sometimes, the most meaningful connections happen when we least expect them. Mia said nothing, but her eyes drifted toward the stairs. Luke stood at the top, leaning on the banister, watching the quiet scene below. Their eyes met briefly before he turned and disappeared. And in that split second, something unspoken passed between them. Something neither of them could name, but both could feel. The days that followed blurred together. Mia couldn't pinpoint when things began to shift, only that they were. Luke hadn't done anything grand, but it was the little things, the subtle kindness, the quiet presence, that began to chip away at her guard. One evening, she wandered into the kitchen, alone and hungry. Her mom was working late. She didn't expect to see Luke there, let alone see him holding out a second mug of tea. Made extra, he said, offering it to her. Figured you might want one. Caught off guard, she took it. Thanks. They stood in silence for a moment, sipping their tea. It wasn't awkward, just different. I was thinking of going for a walk, Luke said, his tone casual. Want to come? Part of her wanted to say no, keep her distance, but something about his offer felt genuine, like he wasn't trying to force anything. Sure, she said after a beat. I could use the air. The walk was quiet, peaceful, and somewhere in the stillness, it felt easy, like they weren't just two strangers forced to live together, but two people who were quietly learning how to exist in the same space. Do you like it here? Luke asked. Mia shrugged. It's different. Still feels like I don't belong. I get that, he said. This wasn't what I expected either, but maybe different doesn't have to mean bad. She looked at him then, really looked, and saw the sincerity behind the words. Maybe he wasn't just being polite. Maybe he understood more than she thought. Over the next few days, things continued to shift. The walls she'd built began to lower. Slowly, cautiously. Luke still had,